little money on the wallet to do the registration. Unfortunately, like all things in Ghana, I was at home when they called me to say, the vulnerable people you say you are giving 24 cities to, some of them are coming in cars. And I said, hey, what kind of data has Natmo given me? So I called a Natmo guy that only then away. But those are the challenges of the town, you see, because without Natmo, it's very difficult to get data on vulnerable people. But Natmo also gives you data of cowardice. It's not easy, but I'm just saying that innovation is what keeps you going.
Yeah.
Because at the end, through that exercise, there are also other learnings, and tomorrow we'll know what to do to get around that Natmo data as well. Technology is trivial, I want to state here, because a lot of people get overexcited by the technology part of the puzzle. You know, I get tired of switching on the radio to hear somebody saying, when I was in Germany, when I drive this way, then the road can do this, and then the bridge can turn into whatever. That is irrelevant. Technology is trivial. You see, at the end of the day, Steve Jobs and Michael Dell and Mark Zuckerberg and these kind of guys who are moving the frontiers of technology, you will be surprised that most of the time they've forgotten their password. Because at the end of it, it's not at all about the gadgetry. It's not at all about, it is an implementation process about people. And it's very important that when we talk about innovation and we talk about the brand space, we are dealing with the central issues. It's in the industry that I'm in, we find it even more important because if you are not careful, you want to create an app store. For me, the project that I talk about most is a project that failed anyway, but I talk about it most because I tried to do e-commerce in Abusokai. And it was very important for me to get e-commerce running outside of the normal GhanaMart.com, GhanaBuys.com, OLX.com, etc., because the masses were not there. There were not significant volumes online shopping with the payment media that are needed and all that. So we wanted to do something in the market where the masses are. Now, I went to, start collecting the data. We had a project team. We started setting it up the way we know and all that. And then again, I got a call from Paddy, the head of the Abusokan Traders Association. He called me and he said, his guy, Kabot, will call me shortly. Within 5 minutes, Kabot called. He said, project 9 I said, hey, why? Kabot. And he said, Abusokan, for pricing for your people have come asking for prices of items to go and put online. So I was a bit confused. I said, what are we? He said, that is it. That it will not work. So you go and think about it again and then come when you have time. But he's not going to put his price there for his next shop to go and undercut it. And basically that's not how they do it in Abusoka. Unfortunately, we went into boardroom mode. So immediately we set up an online bargaining app where you can go, you click, and Kabot will get a notification that you want the Nizam Patrol shaft, and then he can get back to you with the price, and then you confirm, and so on and so forth. And guess what? We have zero traffic. When is Kabot going to get time to be responding to apps? Another guy has done Abusokan.com. Has anybody gone there? It's working perfectly. I invited him to my office the other day. I said, please, just explain to me, because I want to learn from where we went wrong. And he said, well, the difference is that I operate in Abusokan. So when the order comes, I know immediately that there's a limit to automation. Yeah. And at a certain point, common sense takes over. So you need a shaft. You need to know somewhere within Abusokan where genuine parts are and where good deals are and so on and so forth. So he has put a small team together who are using the savvy of the local landscape to be able to make the thing work. I don't know how much traffic he's getting, but he convinced me. And I'm just saying that technology is trivial because mine probably was technologically more elegant. Just like BlackBerry and all these things are very elegant technologically. But the market share is where it is. And I just mentioned about Ghana because we are all saddled with a state of insecurity. I don't know where it came from. I was at the launch of the Eduboye Foundation last week or last 2 weeks. And one thing that struck me was when Professor Adufini mounted the rostrum and started to chronicle the sequence of historical theory in Ghana and mentioned that at a certain point, all European institutions said the history of Ghana. There's a gentleman called Trevor Roper, the guy that Eduboye described as myopic and full of nonsense, basically. But they started to chronicle that the history of Africa was the history of the Europeans in Africa, because what was there before them was not written. These guys went and they researched the scrolls of the Arab scholars and found a lot of documentation from the Arab scholars that came. Then they also, together with Alex Papon and several other people, came together to constitute almost like an academic movement to make the unwritten word elegant. To say that, look, oral tradition cannot be dismissed because it is not written in the Roman alphabet. You have to know it. You have to go into anthropological studies, immerse yourself, and also unearth that one. Through that, the entire history has been created. And it's also a history of institutions. It's a history of processes. It's a history of governance. It's a history of innovation. It's not for nothing that some of these traditional authorities and so on have survived thousands of years. The history that connects the Kwan into the various, right from Gonja into Nzima areas and so on and so forth, it's something that is very complex. But when you study it properly, that is also what you can innovate from to create the space around your brand that makes it engaging. Unfortunately, I mentioned insecurity because I think sometimes we have MTN business dialogue. People get up and ask questions like, we Africans, what is wrong with us? And so on and so on. It is a state of defeat. I don't understand how it came to this. Muhammad Ali just died. Let's take that upon ourselves to say that confident men have come and gone. People who threw Olympic medals into rivers and said they will not box for a country that will not allow them to eat. So under those circumstances, we say Ghana is great because nothing has been lost, but somehow spirits are going down. That one doesn't work well at all. Let me see the last slide. I think I have just a minute.
No, you can talk as long as you want.
Okay, but
We need more. We need more.
Where's the person? Sorry. Class president. Class president. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, sir. Class president.
What I remember is the way you are standing. I remember when I was teaching at Gimpa. I mean, one of my most attentive students. After one lecture, he came to me and said he's very sorry for what happened today. I didn't notice anything. So I said, what happened? And he said, oh, I didn't see that he of all people was sleeping in class. I said, I myself, I sleep at the so there's no big deal. But he was part of the VVIP security, the guys who escort gold.
Okay.
So he told me that they were coming from Pristia through the night with gold bars and so on. So, first thing in the morning coming for class with people. Anyway, the way you were standing, I just remember the guy. Are you with VVIP security? Oh, okay. Interestingly, I just went into the last point on the previous slide, that when you look at Western nations and what they've done, it is a combination of systems, it's a combination of structures, of governance, of brands, of things that they've done to package themselves in such a way that it looks elegant. But at the end of the day, like I mentioned, it's also a combination of ruffians in the pubs and royalty that are idling. It is not different from the society that we live in. What we've not done too well is that we have to brand Kantamando. We have to make it the important trading institution that it is. Kantamando is not about the structures that are there. I went there with the last head of MTN commercial, half Irish guy, half South African guy. We were walking through, and I told him that one caution statement I would give you before we leave, that day it was at Kuroshi actually, before we leave here, is that the people you are looking at are not poor. So when you go back, and we are having mobile money strategy conference call, and you start talking nonsense about let's look for some aid scheme that we can take into Agobloshi for people to be able to rescue their children from famine. That is why I don't listen to you, because you are seeing traders who understand the psychology of the IRS very well, now GRA. In this country, if you operate from airport city, your tax is high. Your revenue may be the same, but the taxman believes that you need to pay more because you are elegant. But the same guys that you see over there, I don't know if you go for Kwehu Easter and so on and so forth. You see where Midwest lives in Kwehu. But in Accra, you will not see him. You ask, and Daniel Ofori, Whitechapel, when Heineken tried to sell the brewery that used to employ me to Diageo, Daniel Ofori was the biggest minority shareholder after Snake. I was sitting in my office in Amsterdam, and then I heard a conference call next door. It was the bosses of Diageo, of Heineken, of who, and all you could hear was, and where can we find Mr. Ofori? Where can we talk to Mr. Ofori? We need, because if he did not agree to the deal, it was stopped. Whitechapel said, Minty, that's all. People were flying into Ghana, and they asked for him, they said they should go to Kantamando. Now how does an Irishman enter Kantamando? Through which entrance? So the thing was messing up. The lawyers were chopping their money because they hired all the elegant lawyers from the high streets of Accra to say, bring the man to the table, and he said he's not coming. All he needs is, eventually, to cut a long story short, to be able to talk to Whitechapel, they had to first write a check for 2 million euros, put on the table. They had to pay his workers' bills, or his lawyers' bills. Then he didn't even come to the table. He sent a message that Monton. It's all right at that point. But what I'm saying is that you need then to understand that what is going on in our Kantamanto and so on is only for lack of branding that it is being disrespected. Because every now and then people talk about crimes that big traders have committed, etc., etc. You see, this country in its recent past has learned a lot of lessons. In the 70s, for those who remember, we went around and we said Siao and B.A. Mesa and the big businessmen, industrialists, Frimpong and Sa, several of them had got favors from the previous civilian regimes. So not only will we destroy their businesses, but we will also harass them and exile them from the country. And in the cases that we'll be able to find them, we will also kill them. So yes, Kofi Bacha and so on. These guys went on to create a lot of value in Gambia and other places because they were industrialists. The origins of Heineken, the origins of Unilever, the origins, look, you don't even want to go there. It is full of blood and tears. I mean, the history of Ghana, when you talk about colonial rule, you talk about West African amalgamated merchants, and then you talk about UAC. They were the representatives of the crown. They are the ones who were, even today, the Belgian government tends to represent itself through its big businessmen in town. When I was going for MIS, it was Wade Adams who gave us the visa. They give a certain ratification of the past at a certain point, where you say that capital has been formed, a lot of pain has happened, let's go and atone for it. But we must not destroy that accumulation, because they know that there's a certain process that accumulates that cannot be destroyed. And I'm saying that all to the point that, yes, people say things that Kantamantos cannot be near Mashishe. It's a statement we hear all the time, and a lot of things have happened and so on and so forth. But there's a point at which you say that, how do we channel this? Just like the man had gone to invest in the stock exchange and so on and become powerful. You have to also channel this and brand it properly, so that we move away from that notion where my team will think that if they have to go and face the managing director of a company in Airport City, that is a big moment. But if they have to go and face Whitechapel that controls $1 billion, it is a small moment, because it is not a branded neighborhood. Those are the challenges that we associate with the branding. Leaders or systems is an interesting dilemma for a group like this, but it's always important in every field that we discuss that we also identify that the real problem for moving these things forward is not necessarily that we have to go and do a revolution. And we have to go and, you see, sometimes we go from places like this and just see the marching orders are that go and get rid of old management in all parastatals and so on and so forth. And at the end of it, we'll have heaven, we'll have paradise. Young people also steal a lot of money. And there's no magic in these things. Other countries have done it systematically. You make sure that reconciliations can be done. You make sure that orders can be delivered. You make sure that, Victor, I believe you were in manufacturing in those days. I mean, people like this run factories. And every day, Mama would go in, soap would come out. Because there was a certain process that you felt that there was confidence in and that they can repeat it.
You didn't come today.
I didn't come quite.
We want to brand a rural bank. And, your talk points in the things that the ECG man.
We have an ECG marketing manager around.
I see.
Yeah.
And what's he got to do with rural bank?
That is the amazing thing.
Oh, I see. ECG is branding rural bank. I see. Anyway, so I mean that's it. I try to stay within the. But if you have discussion points, please raise them.
We'll take the questions or discussions row by row. So we'll start with the I mean your role, sorry. No. You can nominate somebody as class president.
Stand up. Speak on that. That's family other.
Oh, I see. You always stand by me.
Okay, Chum, go to the previous slide. Yeah, I think people are slow, so we'll start from here. Then we'll come.
Okay.
All right. Let's just have a go.
But where you work?
I work with Engine Ghana.
Okay, interesting.
I like the part about IBM being that IBM, and then taking ground zero, being able to connect the few things together and all that. Like you said, Ghana is great, but there's some sense of things don't work right. It's always a hassle to do this and all that. Would it be too difficult for private sector, MTN, Vodafone, coming together and say that let's have national identification database, possibly driven by you guys, possibly made well, because technology, like you said, is trivial, but it's also significant. Because some of them, I don't listen to radio, but every now and then, the things you hear and all that, if there's some semblance of order in identification, for instance, some of the problems we have with banks being unable to recover loans and all those things will become things of the past.
No, I mean, I'll tell you, if any progress has been made in identification in Ghana, however little, telecom companies are in the lead. Currently, if there's any national security threat, I might hear of it, not because I'm a BBIP guy, but because identification data in Ghana is believed to be most reliable when it comes from our end. Now, why do we not trumpet it? Because we are not at all satisfied that the country, well, we are not satisfied that the country will be satisfied with where we've reached. Because to be able to do identification properly, online, when I'm capturing your details, I should be connecting to your source document. Right now, I have very intelligent programmers sitting around constantly studying the format of genuine IDs so that we can build systems on our end to catch forged IDs. I believe it's an unfair, and we've told the regulator several times, we've had that dialogue several times, and we are on the same page, that it's an unfair state of affairs for me to be guessing what a good driver's license is. I should be connected to the live database of DVLE so that when you give me a fake, immediately I get a red alarm that this is a fake. Without that interconnectedness, I unfortunately think that we have almost reached the optimum point as in how far we can go. Because yes, we have a lot of programs running right now to try to catch fakes and so on and so forth. But the law says that I should capture 4 fields: your name, your date of birth, the identification you brought, and your address. The address, how do I verify it? I need to connect to something. And we would have loved, I mean, digital infrastructure, like I said, is our core competence. So we would have loved to be invited into all the sectors to deal with the technological issues as they arise. But that is why I say technology is trivial. Problem has nothing to do with technology. The thing that made PhotoX go and do whatever he went to do at DVL has very little to do with the platform that he was selling. It was a combination of, it was a conspiracy of people to basically mess up the system. So if I go there now, I cannot salvage DVLA from PhotoX. It is themselves who have to say that, look, we've been fleeced for too long, and let's sanitize this part of the chain. Let's reduce the problem to a technological problem. Then technology experts can help. It's the reason I say technology is trivial. Most of the time, we don't reduce the problem to the bare bones, and then we throw in technology. It cannot achieve anything. I told the MIS class when I went there that when I worked for KPMG, I never saw an institution that wrote more letters to turn away business. But that's exactly what it did. Ghana Airways comes in, you want to set up financial software. The training for the financial software, you say you want to do it in England. Now the list of participants comes, and they are not the people who are going to use the system. A different group of people is going to England on behalf of the people who will use. At that point, KPMG wrote a letter that if you are not serious, don't buy software next time.
So, yeah.
When you are serious, we'll do the project. And immediately they reversed those measures. So that's really the debacle around the ID thing. That if you reduce it to technology, we can solve it. But
the key point that I picked from your...
What's up?
Yes.
Oh, 10. It's 10.
Oh, sorry. I thought you
No, row by row.
this institution you're working,
I'm Steve. I work for myself.
fantastic. What do you do?
It's a consultancy, marketing consultancy.
Great.
You've spoken a lot, rambled on and on, and basically touched on very topical issues. Now, okay, I will center on the Ghana issue. It is true that those of, well, I think I belong to a generation too. You see, we grew up at a time when we were looking up to the West for leadership. What I noticed these days, I mean, we were listening to Kool and the Gang, Shalama,
Midnight Star.
those, I mean, when you went to a party, that's what you heard.
Yeah.
Recently, I went to one of my nephew's jams and I didn't hear any Western music at all.
Fantastic.
It's all Shatawale and EL, and we're calling names I didn't know about. And when you see them, they call Agbeko. No, they don't know Agbeko. I mean, they have swag, you see, because they connect to local stars, which we didn't have. So yes, Ghana is. I know that Ghana is great, but then we have a problem because the values that we know will build the country, they don't have it. Because they don't see, they wouldn't reduce the problem to technology and then solve it. They go straight to the people's side, corrupt whoever is there, and then carry on. So when you try to, yeah, so when you try to advise them that you are not solving the problem, you are burying the problem, and it will rot and blow up somewhere. They don't understand it. They say, oh, Charlie, Steve, watch it.
But if I may ask, who do you consider to be the youngest in the class?
That's us.
Yeah? You? Okay, interesting. When did you complete that? 2011. Which faith do you belong to? You're a Christian. So please, what church are you? You see, I won't be surprised that maybe you are in the Methodist church.
No.
Anyway, I'm just citing this as our dilemma when we have to do marketing is to make sure that we are listening to her too. Because I do tend to think that we are suffering a bit from the fact that her generation is not in leadership.
Yes.
So we will sit down and we will make a lot of these decisions. And I think we are very judgmental of the values of the youth. Let me clarify what I mean. But when you listen to that side of the equation, when we launched our youth proposition recently, MTN Pulse, in fact, some of us even switched off the ringtone that the company had put on our phones because the youth music, we couldn't understand it. And our friends were complaining that now but we were supposed to be helping to market the proposition and so on and so forth. But we found through the process in a very painful way that the problem reverts to us again, because our generation, like you said, is majority of leadership. We don't have a clear listening process to make sure that, and human beings that they speak of. I mean, yesterday, maybe in the privacy of the room, I can say, yesterday I applied for a salary advance. I came and then somebody told me, oh, for you to get approval for this, you have to go and explain to CEO this, that. I'm not normally an ethnocentric person. But for that moment, I said, Santinisa made them in Pacho. So if you will not give it to me, forget it. Because that is the way I see it. But you see that the youth are telling us that in a certain way. That you are not listening to us, and you are innovating for us. So,
you see, what I'm saying is that there is energy over there.
yeah.
You see, which we are not tapping into.
Yeah.
So even though we have values which we believe in, we are not communicating and properly to them. Because
we are not listening to their values.
that's what I'm saying. Because whatever we believe in, they have to internalize it. But we are like trying to shove it down their throats. Like this is the correct thing. And they are not seeing what we mean by this is correct. You see, so we have to make them internalize, we have to market our values to them properly.
And especially in branding space. Because, I mean, the brand health matrix, the youthfulness of the brand is probably the most important indicator of the future health of the brand. And when your brand is aging, beer, when they told us in Amsterdam that this is a failing product and we have to move into the cocktail space, we said, oh, Ghana, Nigeria, Star Beer, Shine Bobo is failing where? It's a European problem. I remember very well that we fought them and they said, no, you know, in Europe, the young people are not drinking beer and this problem will come. So let's plan for it, let's have the propositions, etc. We refused. Sechikan's biggest headache today is the fact that they don't drink Guinness foreign extra stout. That was the cash cow for the business. So to be able to do, fortunately, he's marketed Origin very well.
Yeah.
And the cocktail has swum into the space as was envisaged. But it could have been planned in a less stressful way if the research had been listened to. That young people are saying they will not drink the same thing their fathers drink.
But those days, Jordan didn't go, the Guinness was still very huge.
It was so huge that nobody wanted to discuss the future.
Okay.
You see, that was it's always a challenge of success.
Ralph did a research proposal.
It's a challenge of success, bro. I mean, like MTN today, one of our biggest conversations is airtime is declining. The business model was very simple when it was, even 5 years ago when I joined. You make a phone call with that revenue. You make a phone call with that revenue. Now you people are not talking.
I think WhatsApp call.
You are doing WhatsApp. Okay, fine. This particular subject. I will not go there. But for me, you see, we had this conversation when SMS was replaced by WhatsApp text. My personal position at the time was always that never stifle innovation. Today, the biggest contributor to data revenue on our network is WhatsApp. We've made more money on WhatsApp than SMS could ever have given us. So it would have been a suicidal move at the time to say we are saving SMS from WhatsApp, which is better. None. The call that I talk about, when I joined the business, it was 90-something% of the revenue. Today, if you strip out, I mean, it's probably 60-something% that is left from phone calls. I have no worries at all that it continues to decline. It's declined in America, it's declined in Europe, it's declined everywhere else. And other propositions have taken place. It is the reason that telcos, British Telecom has a cloud service now. It's the reason that they have IPTV and they have all this kind of thing. So instead, today, if my colleagues were here, they will bear me out that for our leadership meeting today, I blocked straight 30 minutes. Me and CTO going at each other. That my brother, the broadband that we said you should put into Accra is not happening fast enough. Drop the fiber into homes, drop the Wi-Fi connections, drop all these things, and let's be ready at the front end. When the consumer moves, we move. That's what we've done on all the other services that have been great, that you read ahead of the market, and then you wait for the consumer there. If he doesn't come, you meet him where he went. That's what we did with beer business. The branding statement for beer business was very simple. Meet your consumer at his point of need, because he drinks something else. Water is also your competitor. When he's thirsty, if you don't meet him, the thirst is gone. And so that's basically the situation as we respond to it, as far as the evolution of products, the changes in the profiles of people, the youth, and all these things go. That it is the reason we have to listen to the youth all the time. My 15-year-old daughter is a clear source of market research. He miss me sometimes in the various restaurants trying to, because even to get them talking is a problem. I sit down in front of the girl, she puts earphones, and then, you know, at a certain point you say, what's going on, what's going on? And that's when, if you are lucky, they tell you something. Yeah. But whatever they tell you makes a lot of sense most of the time. But the smaller one, 8 years old, does not even text. That is even getting more confusing. Because I get, you know, you get sometimes a voice recorded message on WhatsApp, press it, and that my homework is difficult. You are a bit confused. But they would rather send you images, send some media clips, send this, send that, because they believe that even that message, that communication with you is a moment of creativity. They've installed apps on my phone that sometimes I say, but why didn't you send the message on WhatsApp? Oh, I sent it on Play Talk. So what is Play Talk? So you have to show them the phone and say, they show me Play Talk. Then they show you that this is it. I'm driving, they've set up Google Maps. Daddy, this route is not, it's too long, it's too long. And I said, but you have people no, the thing is saying that this is the longest route, go by the shortest way. So we listen. We listen. It's very important in what we do that we listen and we accept that we don't know.
Yeah, accept that we don't know.
You are talking about branding people like Daniel Okori, Kantamanto, Abosokai. I'm thinking that maybe it's the fact that they have kept themselves in that way. Midwest calls himself Ateche. It's not a nice name, but he says he has money like mud. So for him, that's what makes him him. So I'm just asking that if you set out to brand people, I mean that kind of community or that kind of people, aren't you going to strip them of something? Aren't they going to lose something? Or would you rather, do you think that rather putting that finesse on them would make them better? So then is that what is going to make, let's say, your team now suit up when they are going to Abosokai or they are going to?
See, I think there's where branding and all branding starts with the process of deep listening. There's a reason Midwest wants to be called Ateche. I don't know if I've understood it. I don't know if any of us has understood it. First, we have to understand. Because in the same space, a musician is called Abodam. And somehow he seems to be, apart from a short prison sentence, he seems to have had quite a career. In the, I don't want to go near that boxer, but yesterday somebody, Peter Zwenis, was saying, no, it wasn't Peter Zwenis, but one of the boxing authorities was saying that, look, I mean, we will be surprised that part of the problem of boxing has been confidence of the boxer. So this guy does behave strange, but when he started talking, he started winning fights. Because some of them cannot even give interviews and so on and so forth. And I see there's a certain complex psychology in that. Michael Essien and Co., they were trained for a long time on interviews. That when you finish, if you want to be a big star, say something. Say something. Just say anything. Say, I've missed my father. Say, my girlfriend is beautiful. Say something. But don't finish a match and leave. Because the fans believe that you're a snob. And you are not going to play in the right frame of mind. So in all of that, it's a complex space. I have spent a lot of time with big traders in the country. Lucky Electricals. I remember I met this guy on Opera Square. I did not understand the extent to which they could say this is the leader of electrical traders in Ghana. But at a certain point, he told me that MTN has sent him an invitation to the Ebo White play. And he told me that, Sebe, I said, oh, Lucky. So, and he said, no, you know, what would make sense is that when you are going to Nana Obohene up the mountain, then you go with him as your big customer from Accra, who is the one who's contributing to the growth of your business.